Leaders, they say they're too busy for one-on-ones. My question to them is, but what's the real cost of skipping them? In this Ask Denis episode, we're going to unpack the hidden impact and why these conversations might be the most important ones you're not having. So let's discuss.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Welcome to the Ask Denis episode. This is a freestyle episode where I'm asked a question by our listeners, or I share my thoughts and experiences and insights from working with many leaders around the globe. Well, listeners, in this fast-paced world of leadership, one phrase I hear far too often is, "I'm too busy for one-on-ones." Now, that's both leaders and individual contributors. Both are saying the same thing. But on the surface, it sounds understandable. Leaders, they're juggling meetings, they've got emails, they've got fires to put out, and they've got decisions to make, and there's a whole lot going on for them. But here's the truth. Skipping one-on-ones isn't saving time. As a leader, it's costing you, and the team, it's costing them more than you actually realize. Now, there's a silent damage of skipping one-on-ones, and when leaders cancel or they deprioritize one-on-one meetings, the damage doesn't always show up immediately. But over time, there's a ripple effect, and it's actually very clear. Here are some areas or things that ripple effect can actually affect. Trust begins to erode. So regular check-ins signal to your team, your people, that they matter. And without them, your team starts to question their value and your availability. The second area around this is part of the ripple effect is that engagement drops. Now, people need space to share. They want to ask questions. They want to raise concerns. And they want to feel seen. So in other words, they want to make sure that you see them, but they also want to be heard. And without that outlet, they'll start to disengage, but they'll do it quietly, but powerfully. Misalignment increases is the third one. So without consistent touch points or meetings, goals start to drift, expectations are blurred, and priorities get misinterpreted. Then you start to have more problems. When I talk about problems, that's the fourth area, because you see small problems start to become big ones. Your one-on-ones are where small issues, well, that's where you actually catch them early. And without them, challenges start to escalate and become more time-consuming than a 30-minute conversation would ever be. So you're going to give 30 minutes from the one-on-one, or then you may have some problems, which are going to cost you more time. And then the final area, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth area is around high performers feel neglected. And this is quite ironic, to be honest. It's often when your best people will suffer most. They crave feedback, challenge, and growth, but when there's no time for one-on-ones, they don't get it. And when they leave, in other words, they vote with their feet, you'll feel that cost deeply. It's going to impact you a lot. Because these are the people you don't want to leave. And so it's going to cost you a lot in the sense of rehiring, loss of intellectual property, and some really good performers. So why one-on-ones are a leadership non-negotiable? Because one-on-ones aren't just about performance reviews or task updates. They're one of your most powerful leadership tools. They're the place to build connections and psychological safety. Give and receive real-time feedback. This is where you can coach your team through challenges. You can align on goals and progress and development. You can spot potential burnout, miscommunication, or disengagement early. Now, these conversations are where leadership gets personal and where, again, culture is reinforced. Now, if you are saying this term a lot, let's have a chat about this, but I don't have time. That's the classic excuse. Yep, I'm calling you out as a leader. It's an excuse, and by the way, it's not good enough. If you find yourself saying this, the thing that you should be asking yourself instead is, what am I prioritizing over my people? Because no strategy, no project, no email is more important than investing those who execute the vision. The real question isn't whether you have time for one-on-ones. It's whether you can afford not to have them. I think that for a lot of leaders nowadays, yes, they're busy and there's a whole lot of things being thrown at them. I get that. And I get the fact that there are going to be times whereby there might be a crisis happening. Yes, you could probably delay or move it to another time, but still have the meeting some other time. But I'm talking about ones who just don't have meetings at all or cancel them on a consistent basis. So if you are going to have one-on-ones, then how do you make them count? So number one is be present. Eliminate any distractions that are happening. This is their time with you. Now put the phone away. Put everything down and be with a person. The second area here would be active listening. Really listen to what people are sharing with you. The third one would be having an effective agenda or structure. It's not about you two getting together and you're talking about things. The next minute you're talking about things and you're off on another topic, but there's still another 3, 4, 5 things we haven't even got to. So I think just keep it simple. Cover 3 to 5 items. Have a one-pager maybe. I have a one-on-one template that's on one page. And I use that for the leaders I coach, and we show them what to do with that one page. It's very simple. The other area would be around asking meaningful questions. So go beyond the to-do list. Ask about challenges, wins, or achievements, morale, aspirations. Ask them everything. Here's another question. Ask them what they might need from you. So what is it that you might need from me as your leader to help you be successful? The other area is around follow-up. What gets discussed should lead to action or change. These are the things that are going to help the needle move forward, right? So you should always be talking about action or change and then holding each other accountable. The final area under how you make these meetings count is be consistent. Skipping a meeting will send a very strong message. But so does showing up every time. And if you are consistently showing up every time, it tells people that you know that they matter and that what they want to talk about really matters. I know you've got a whole lot of deadlines, and I know you've got a whole lot of things going on too. So how often should you be meeting? Or every week might be a bit of an overkill, but for some of you, you might need to do that on major projects or major things that are happening at first, and then later on go to every 2 weeks. I think every 2 weeks is more than enough. You could do half an hour. For a lot of you, you're probably talking to people throughout the week anyhow on other matters. But it's dedicated time. 30 minutes, 45 minutes. You don't actually have to have an hour, but 45 minutes, and then gives you another 15 minutes to either have a little bit of leeway or you get ready into going into your next meeting. Now, if you're listening to this episode and you're a leader, that's great. But what happens if your leader what if your leader isn't holding one-on-one meetings? What should you do? Here we go. If you're someone on the team or the leader that isn't prioritizing regular one-on-ones, or your leader isn't prioritizing regular one-on-ones, don't just sit back. Lead up. In other words, take control and lead your leader. Request a meeting and come prepared. Don't just go to a meeting because you see, for half an hour or 45 minutes, is very important for you and for them. It's time that you've got on the calendar. Make it count as well. So make sure that you come along prepared with a clear agenda. What are you working on? Where you need support? What's going well? And where you might see some room for growth or might see some issues or roadblocks. Now, if you can demonstrate this, and if you can do this, in other words, you set up the meeting, you're driving it, but you're also expecting them to be there, then this time can be valuable and also efficient. Sometimes leaders don't really realize what's being missed until someone shows them. So you be the bigger person, you be the leader, and you show your leader what might need to happen. By you taking the initiative, you not only advocate for yourself, but you help create a culture of connection and accountability from the ground up. Well, it's been an interesting topic to talk about because you see, leadership isn't about being the busiest person in the room. It's about being the most intentional and influential. One-on-ones are where you do your most important work as a leader, connecting, aligning, coaching, and building trust. So next time you're tempted to cancel a one-on-one, I'd love you to pause and I'd love you to ask yourself this question. What's the real cost of skipping this conversation? Because in leadership, it's not just about the meetings you attend, it's about the ones that you show up for. Leaders, my call to action for you right now is to make sure that there's two of them, right? I'm going to give you today. Number one is make sure you've got in your calendar and in your team's calendars a regular one-on-one. If you haven't done it and you're not doing it, I'm going to encourage you to listen to this episode and make sure you're putting things in place to happen on a consistent basis. So that's your first call to action. The second call to action is if you need help, if you need some coaching, things like that, I'm offering a free 30-minute strategy call. All you need to do is go to my website, leadingchangepartners.com. On the homepage and other pages, you'll see book a call. If you click on that, it will open up my calendar booking system. You can choose a time, the day and time that suits you, and it will go into my calendar because the system shows when I may have some available time slots. So go ahead and do that. And if you haven't got the note of the website, go down to the show notes. The link will be there. The production team have gone and put that in there for you. Hey, listeners, that's it for this episode. It's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for joining me on the Leadership is Changing podcast. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.